Hi, welcome back to my channel. If we haven't met, my name is Katherine Solomon. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I work with couples and individuals to help them be a healthier individual as well as have better communication in their relationships. Today, I want to show you a couple clips of an interview between Jay Shetty and a therapist named Orna because I really like about some of the ways they're talking about these important relationship components.
How do you start rewiring that conversation? What does it take? What are the steps to getting out of the blame game, which seems to be such a common place?
Right. It's big. There's no one way because people get stuck in that blame game, which is pernicious for different reasons. My job, and when people are in that kind of pattern, is to convince each of them to kind of release the grip they have, like be a little less convinced and sure about their own narrative. Just get a little less stubborn about your narrative and start getting curious about other ways to see things, and then start getting curious about yourself. Rather than hyper-focus on your partner and put everything outside, like try to pull back from that hyper-focus and start asking yourself questions. Why does this thing bother me so much? What is the thing that is like making me crazy? Like if we went back to like the example of like the dinner parties, like why is it so important to clean right after? What's the fear? If the dishes sit there for another 2 hours, what's the issue? Like look back at yourself. Don't focus on your partner. What's he doing, not doing? What's getting stirred up in you? And usually you find really interesting things there. Like when people are really willing to like pull away from their partner and look into themselves, they're like, oh, this is really interesting.
Let's stop here for a second because I want to expound on a topic that is called dream within conflict. And this is definitely part of what she is alluding to, and these concepts like definitely overlap. So Dr. Gottman, he is a clinical psychologist. He's done research on relationships for decades, him and his wife, Julie. They created this method for getting a deeper understanding of where partners are when you're feeling really stuck on a particular issue. And so what this looks like is you want to have a conversation where the goal is not to solve the problem in that moment or persuade your spouse of your point of view. It is for each person to take turns as the speaker and listener and understand each other more. I love what is being talked about here, where it's like get introspective and figure out like where you're at. But the next step is then to be able to convey all of that to your spouse, because even if you're really self-aware and you know where you're at, if that is not clearly articulated and the other person doesn't have ears to hear that, then you're kind of just still stuck. So let me just kind of walk you through an example of like how you could flesh out this kind of conversation. So the speaker's job is to talk about your feelings and beliefs about your position on this issue, explore what this position means to you, what the dream might be behind your position, tell the story of the source of this dream or the belief, where did it come from, where, what does it symbolize for you, and be very clear and honest, right? What do you really want on this issue and why is it important to you? And then as the listener, your job here is to make your partner feel safe enough to tell you what's behind their position. You want to listen just the way that any friend would listen, right? Ask the questions. I'll give you a list of examples of questions that you can ask to get more information. But you contribute to this climate if you will kind of just suspend judgment. Don't act like a judge, but just like somebody who wants to hear their partner's story and the dream behind the story. Some questions that you can think about when you want to get more info from them and really be curious about where they're at is, what do you believe about this issue? Is there a story behind this for you? Does this relate to your background in some way? Tell me why this is so important to you, or tell me more. Why and what do you feel about it? What do you wish for? What would be your ideal dream here? What do you need? Is there a deeper purpose or goal for you in this? Does this relate to some kind of belief or value system for you? Is there a fear or a disaster scenario in this dream if it's not honored? Like, if it doesn't happen, what are you most afraid of? Like, there's a lot of questions that you can think of, but those are just some really helpful ones to be able to really be curious and help your partner also give thought-provoking answers versus like, well, that's just what I think. And like, well, because like you both need more. Okay. So those are great ways to hopefully move through the conflict, because when we put ourselves in each other's shoes, it helps us to empathize more for this situation. Now, let me show you a clip of the Gottmans, who I just talked about, and they're the ones that created this like outline. They have a video where they're playing it out and explaining like an example scenario for you. And so I want you to see that.
One finding that really shocked us in our research was this: 69% of all relationship conflict problems are perpetual, which means that they never go away. They never get fully solved. And so we learn that conflict really mostly needs to be managed rather than solved.
In our lab, the couples who came back year after year kept bringing up exactly the same issue, even 20 years later.
Right. So when we think about fighting right, whether talking about a perpetual problem or a solvable problem, what is the biggest mistake that the disasters of relationships make? The answer is that they fight to win, which means somebody has to lose. What do the masters do instead? They fight to understand.
Fighting to understand means taking a conversation about an issue and going much deeper to understand what's beneath your partner's position on the issue. That builds the connection.
At the core of fighting to understand is asking one another a set of pre-designed questions that are designed to get at people's thoughts and feelings behind their position on the issue.
This is the questions that I had just given you before, just some example questions.
They interrupt, and then they trade roles. And we call this the dreams within conflict conversation, because it really helps people get at their thoughts and feelings behind their position without feeling judged or attacked.
There are 6 questions in all. And these questions unearth each person's values, feelings, background history, and ideal dream regarding the issue. I'm going to give you an illustration using just 2 out of the 6 questions.
I just want to set the scene really quick. There is a couple who is fighting about to get a dog or not get a dog. One of them wants to get the dog, the other one does not want to get the dog. And so they're going to model for you how to have a dream within conflict conversation where, again, the goal is not to win. The goal is not to convince the other person to get the dog or to not get the dog. It is simply to understand where each person is at within the conflict.
So there was a couple who were really fighting over whether or not to get a dog. So they decided to try the dreams within conflict conversation. Do you have some background or childhood history that's part of your position on this issue? She said,
Absolutely. When I was a kid, I got chased and bitten by just about every dog in our neighborhood.
wow. But the real understanding came with the dream question. So what is your ideal dream here regarding this issue?
You know, if we don't have a dog, we're not tied down, we're not burdened. We're free to travel the world together and have adventures together. That's what I really want. Now listen to what Allison said when she was asked about the childhood history question. She said,
You know, when I was a kid, I was all alone. Okay, so my golden retriever was my best friend. He really kept me from feeling totally alone.
And to the dreams question, she said,
You know, I see getting a dog as a practice run for having kids and having a family. I know that dogs and kids are a lot of responsibility, but they both bring so much love with them into the family. That's what I want.
So on the surface, this fight was about whether or not to get a dog. But beneath the surface, it was about leading a life of adventure and travel versus staying home and raising a family. Without the dreams within conflict conversation, they never would have gotten to this level of understanding of one another.
Okay, isn't that so good? I think that sometimes we underestimate how simple questions can actually unearth so much information. And I know that for some people, you might be thinking like, okay, now they know that they have opposing dreams. They still don't know what to do about the dog. Okay, maybe yes, in that instance, but again, remember the instance, that is not to solve the problem. Like, you're not trying to figure out if you're supposed to have a dog or not. You're just trying to get a better understanding of where each other is at, because when you do that, one, it helps you to see their perspective in a different way, but two, it helps you to figure out like, okay, if we were to step back, does, in this example, getting a dog or not help us move toward our shared goals or not? They may realize that like, wow, you're right. Like, we talked about having a family, and maybe I didn't really want a dog because that does make it a little bit trickier when we travel. But you know, like, you're right. It is good practice. And we said we wanted kids. So like, okay, let's do that. Or they might decide, you know what? We want kids, but like, honestly, not for a long time. We just got married. So I think we are going to travel and just like hang out and spend time doing things for us. So let's wait. Let's put it off a little bit longer. We'll still probably get the dog, but for now, the answer is not yet. There's a million different ways that a couple could go with this kind of conversation, but I mean, they could even say like, let's get a cat, not a dog, right? Like, who knows? There's so many different things, but I just want to show you this example because if you're ever in a situation with your spouse where you're like, we butt heads on the same thing a lot, or like we cannot seem to get out of this conflict and understand each other better, I definitely encourage using this skill of the dream within conflict conversation. All right, I hope that this helped. I hope that you learned a lot, and then the examples that were provided were really insightful and eye-opening for you. Share in the comments any questions or thoughts that you have. Make sure that you like and subscribe this video, and I will see you next time.